Welcome back to the Rewind That Tape YouTube channel. Today we are back with another episode of Contenders or Pretenders. We apologize between the delay in videos, but we had some issues trying to get the latest episode, which is going to be about Texas. Unfortunately, we were not able to get it out due to some audio issues. Last time we did have an episode, we seemed to be correct in predicting that Penn State was a contender as they continue on an undefeated battle as they head towards the horizon where Ohio State is waiting. That will truly decide if we really are going to be right. But for now, that's looking like a good prediction, as well as our past. So far, we're looking 3 for 3 if you consider our Florida State one as well. While it would be fun to look at Oklahoma after their thrilling victory against Texas, we are going to go a different way. I know you guys want to see that, but stay tuned. If Oklahoma keeps winning, we will definitely look their way for the next episode. For now, though, we're going to go back a week and take a look at the Oregon Ducks, who put the college football world on notice when they absolutely smoked Colorado in a highly anticipated matchup. They seem to have lost some attention since then, but I think it's time to shed a light on what I think is the hottest team in the country. Are the Oregon Ducks contenders or pretenders? Let's rewind that tape. Oregon is led by head coach Dan Lanning, who seems to have lived for this media hype based on his antics throughout the season. During the Colorado game, we were able to see a live look of how animated Dan can really get as he really wanted his players amped up, and they brought the energy to win that game. I'm not sure the same type of story can be said for the rest of Oregon's season. It's not just going to be a media game every time and what I mean by that is the coach can simply hype up the players and get them going. It's going to take a lot more than that for them to win out this year, but they bring an incredible defense as well as an explosive offense to the table, and they look pretty unstoppable so far. The question that I've been alluding to is whether they can keep it up when their schedule starts to get more difficult. Let's start off on the defensive side of the ball. This is probably the biggest surprise for me when watching college football. I was not expecting Oregon's defense to be as good as they are. Don't get me wrong, I had respect for them before the season, but not to the standard that we are seeing them at. They are allowing their opponents 1 or 2 touchdowns a game. That is probably the best in college football. I mean, I would have to check, but I would be pretty confident saying that is the best in college football. This defense gets it done. They have a great front seven, and they have a pretty good secondary that backs up everything that gets through. But to be honest, when you watch that Colorado game, when you watch this game against Stanford more recently, you see that defense that is able to stop everything. They stop the run, the passes get batted at the lines. If the ball gets thrown out, there's usually good coverage. Every now and then there's a slip up, but for the most part, this defense is solid all the way around, and that's what's so impressive. There isn't much weak spots on this team. When it gets down on third down, the coaches do a great job of dropping everybody back. They make plays on the ball. They don't let anything get too far behind them. I mean, that's all you can ask for out of a college football team. If you're going to stop them a few times, your offense should be able to get on the board and get wins. For me, I think the biggest question mark is the secondary. Now, I'm going to say it throughout the video, this team has not been tested yet. Colorado was the biggest test, and so far they haven't done so well in the following games. They lost to USC and they barely beat Arizona State in a thrilling game, which featured a game-winning field goal. So Colorado doesn't have a ton of respect on my end right now, even though they are a pretty decent football team. I want this Oregon defense to get tested, and when they do, that will be when we see if this team is legit or not, especially on the defensive side of the ball. If they keep playing like they are, which I think this is not going to be a 2-possession, 2-touchdown defensive team, but it will be a defense that stops the other team, and we're going to see that this weekend against Washington. I think this is definitely in the conversation where Penn State's defense is. It's one of those elite defenses like Ohio State, like Notre Dame. We need to see them play a difficult game where they have to grind one out. But for now, I think it's going to be one of the top defenses, top 5 defense in college football right now. Let's look at the other side of the ball, the offense. Definitely not as good as the defense right off the bat. But They have plenty of weapons around them. Bucky Irving is a solid running back that seems to carry the load pretty well. They also have a running back by the names of Jordan James who seems to be carrying the load as well. Bucky seems to be getting more of the split on a 50 to 34 carries, 50 to Bucky and 30 to Jordan James. But those are two solid weapons for Oregon. They also have a great standout wide receiver who has really put his name on the map in Troy Franklin. This is a kid that I'm very impressed with, and his connection with Bo Nix seems to be very, very good. He played phenomenally against Colorado, phenomenally. And there's not much bad things to say about the kid. There's a lot of receiving threats. That's the difference between this team and the Penn State team we talked about 2 weeks ago. There is a lot of threats on this team. Bo Nix has the ability to find his targets, to go through his progressions, find big plays from any of his wide receivers. Troy Franklin isn't the only guy. The second leading receiver on the team goes by the name of Gary Bryant Jr., another wideout who's been solid this year. They have a solid tight end in Terrence Ferguson, same name as the Cowboys player, but this guy is going to make his own name for himself based off the way he's been getting open in these tight situations for Bo Nix. I don't know how deep this offense is. I don't think they're one of the best offenses in college football, but that's comparing them to these other Pac 12 teams like USC and Washington who sling the ball. The thing with the Oregon offense is they are able to get it down the field well, but they make a lot of good plays, 10 to 15-yard chunk plays, and they run the ball well. They have a good O line, and Bo Nix has time to go through his progressions. That's what I like about this team. They're not looking for deep shots often, and if they do, it's usually going to be a run after catch. I think that's pretty important in college football to have. And the offense overall gets a check mark. Not one of the best ones, but good enough to make a run. Let's look at Bo Nix. This is a guy that we saw plenty of tape on throughout his college football career. We saw him at Auburn, and then now at Oregon, and he has been playing at an elite level this year. He is able to sit back. That's the biggest thing. At Auburn, we saw him struggle when the pressure really, really got to him. We saw him struggle in that second year and on the back half of that first year when people kept getting to him behind the line. This year, the O line is great, and that's why I like Bo Nix this year. Do I think he's one of the elite top 5 quarterbacks? Where does he land? I would say somewhere in the top 15, maybe top 10. Lower in that top 15, maybe around 11, 12. I don't think he's super elite, but he does the job well. And he's not going to break the likes of Penix or Caleb Williams or that sort of thing. I mean, Quinn Ewers before that latest game, I don't know if we can classify him up there anymore, but he is getting into my top 10, which is a positive note, and I think he's going to get better as the season goes along. But what does he look like when he gets tested? It's the same question for the offense. We're going to find out, and let's take a look at their strength of schedule. It's a perfect segue there. Washington has to be the next opponent that Oregon has to completely launch. If they can beat this team convincingly, you're looking at a lot more hype for this team, a lot more attention for this team. And I really think this game, if they are mentally prepared for it, can be a solid, solid win for them. The playoff route is pretty treacherous for Oregon. They have 5 more ranked opponents on the schedule, 2 of them being in the top 10 against number 7 Washington and number 10 USC. The other ranked matchups are against Washington State, Utah, and lastly, a rivalry game against Oregon State. The only bright spot from all these games is 3 out of the 5 are at home, which seems to be a place where the Ducks play amazingly in. They have beaten their opponent by a total of 35 points in all of those games. That's pretty impressive considering how good we thought this team was going to be. But then again, they haven't been tested. But they are really, really about to get tested by this Pac 12 slate. None of these teams that they have left that are ranked are going to be easy games. All of them have offenses. They're all going to test that defense. The real question is whether this Oregon offense can score enough points to give the defense some credit. I think this defense is going to hold some of these teams to 20, 25 points, and it's going to be solid defense. But if the offense can't score that much, all of a sudden the defense looks bad. The Pac 12 is not going to be easy. USC is the matchup I'm circling right here because I think this week against Washington, they're going to get the job done. A home game against USC is going to be extremely difficult. It's going to be Oregon's offense versus USC's defense, in my opinion. because we know Caleb Williams is going to score. The question is, can Bo Nix go out and do that against a treacherous USC defense? That defense hasn't been stopping anybody all year. They went into overtime against Arizona. Bo Nix should be able to exploit that defense, and if he can, Oregon is going to be very much in this game. Let's move on. Can they make the playoff with that schedule? If this team has one loss, they should make the Pac-12 championship with a new revived format, which features the top Pac-12 team, the number 2 Pac-12 team. So it will be based off win percentage. So it should set up a rematch with USC if they win that game or lose that game. But you never know what's going to happen at this point in the season. They still have a lot of work to do. They got to keep their heads one game at a time is definitely going to be the message. Oregon brings plenty of talent on both sides of the ball, and it's hard to wonder why more people aren't talking about how dominant this team has been in the first half of the season. Sure, the schedule gets a whole lot harder. Sure, Oregon hasn't played a team of a super high caliber, but they have done what they are supposed to do so far. Is that not the name of the game? Is that not what they're supposed to do? Oregon has done enough for me so far to be in the contenders category. Based on how dominant they have been, they seem to be like no other team right now. The games against Washington and USC, which are top 10 highly anticipated matchups, should be the make or break games for this team. But it's going to be real interesting to see what happens. There's a lot of other teams in the Pac 12, including Oregon State and Utah, that they still have to go through. It's not going to be easy, but it should be something that they are able to get done. If they can get through both of those games against Washington and USC and the rest of the schedule, they should be looking at another college football playoff appearance. For now, we're going to see what happens with Oregon, and they are officially contenders in my book. That's all we got for this episode of Contenders or Pretenders. We appreciate you guys for listening, and make sure to subscribe to our channel. Go ahead and check out our website at rewindthattape.com and check us out on our social medias as well as our podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one.